Have you ever wondered how important it is to know our body and at the same time our sexuality? So today we're going to know about it all through the Right Here, Right Now Honduras platform. In our panel we have three experts, three people who know about this topic, who will clarify every doubt. We have Osman, Tiara, and Sandy, who will tell us about their experiences, how they have lived, and how they knew that they had a different orientation or that they were part of sexual diversity. But before that, we're going to know a little bit of their profiles. So first, we're going to know Osman. Osman has started in this platform in 2017 as a monitoring and evaluation officer for the Right Here, Right Now Honduras platform. He has a bachelor's degree in journalism. He has diploma courses with the European Union with public policies. He knows about digital marketing with PSS International, constitutional law with the University of Clementina Suarez, amongst others. And he was a PR for the Arcoiris office for 3 years. He is an activist of the LGBTI movement and a promoter of the rights of population who are in a situation of vulnerability. We also have with us Tiara Barrientos. She is a trans women activist and advocate for human rights of population in vulnerability in Honduras. She is a graduate from high school as a health technician. She is a student of the psychology career. She collaborates with the Right Here, Right Now Honduras platform. She performs as a technical assistant. She has been trained as a facilitator in topics of access to justice, political engagement, sexual and reproductive health and rights, as well as gender violence, sexual diversity, sexual orientations, gender identity and expression. And we also have Sandy Arteaga. She works for the Youth Secretariat of the Right Here, Right Now Honduras platform since 2019. She is the focal point for the center area of the country. She studies philosophy in the National Autonomous University of Honduras and has been trained in the political feminist school for the rights of women. She did that in 2018. She is an activist for sexual reproductive health and rights, the rights of women and LGBT within the human rights. She has worked in these rights centers specifically for the rights of people. This topic is very interesting because it includes a lot of taboo. We are always taught by our parents that touching ourselves is a sin, that knowing about our sexuality is a sin, or feeling pleasure is a sin. So we are going to clarify all of those doubts. How are you, Osman?
Just here.
Here, not being there.
Not to be anywhere else. And now just talking about knowledge of our bodies, how we must know and explore ourselves, and the right for us to do so, right?
Were you ever told at home, don't masturbate because it is a sin? Don't do this or don't do that because it's not proper, or because the Bible tells you such and such? Were you told this?
Yes, it's quite funny to recall everything that our parents used to tell you, and it was about not to explore yourself. The self-exploration comes from pleasure itself, from knowing our bodies, knowing what is it that we have. And it was funny in my case because when I was a teenager and I was going through puberty as every boy, you begin being asked by my fundamentalist religious family, and most of them are like that. And they used to say, no, this is a sin. You can't do this. It's harming, and you have to get virgin to the marriage, and they made you feel quite dirty. They made me feel dirty if I touch myself, because they would say, no, I can't do it because it's a sin. I will go to hell.
And when you had that first experience, what did you feel? Did you feel bad?
When I had my first
because
experience,
everything that you were told was not right?
it was funny because I was at school and I began knowing more between my colleagues, my classmates, between young men who were joking around.
And you make a competition of sizes, right?
Yes, a lot. And so they began asking about masturbation, and I felt, wow, I know nothing. I think I recall after that conversation, I went home, locked myself in my room, but then afterwards my mom was knocking on the door because we could not get ourselves locked in our rooms. And then after I masturbated my first time, it was like, wow, I felt well. But then afterwards, I felt dirty. I felt dirty, and what I did was I took a shower because my family ingrained in me that it was a sin, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't get to know and explore my body a little bit.
Well, and imagine how important it is to know about our bodies, both for men and women and people who belong to a sexual diversity. Oftentimes, you can find anomalies or different things, like in your testicles, like masses, or you find masses on your boobies or in other parts of your body, and that can also help you to go to a doctor and get some kind of assistance in case it is something bad. So maybe now that concept has improved, maybe because of cancer, because you are told do a self-exploration. Yes, right. But in case of sexuality, there's always a taboo. There's always that negative part. So, Tiara, how was your experience? Especially because you are a trans woman. That's right. Hello, everyone. It is a pleasure to be here with all of you. This is a very important topic, and also the right for abortion. My experience was very curious because since I was very young, I knew that my body wasn't what I conceived with the way I thought. So when I grew up, when I became an adolescent, I saw my body, and I was asking myself what was happening. And at that time, since I didn't have access to information, even though we know that now there's more progress, the fact that we can have access to information, but there is some information that is not true. But back then, I didn't know what a trans person was, or I couldn't ask my parents about how I could get help to know how to explore my body. Then it was curious. It was funny because, as Osman said, it is very hard to tell your father that you are exploring your genitalia. So I was rejecting my genitalia. I didn't have the acceptance in 100% with my body because it was extremely hard for me. So the situation of the religious topic was hard. Just touching yourself and feeling guilty, it was a great impact for me. Tiara, in your case, you're a trans woman. You have defined yourself as a trans woman. Would you have a surgery done? Well, it's an interesting question. I would do it, but I don't consider that a vagina will make me more or less of a woman. And I ask you because you said that you felt weird with your member, and maybe I thought you wanted to change it. But you have contemplated, right? Yes, I have, out of aesthetics or because for my body to look. What do you see different in your in the mirror? What don't you like? I don't like my genitalia, but I have been able to accept it as such, and if I had the opportunity to switch genders, I could do it. Sandy seems a little bit more shy, but about your adolescence, what would you have liked to know when you were younger? I think that talking about sexuality is a taboo. Because as many people who were educated in a Catholic school, it was hard to talk about sexuality. And I remember once that people tried to come to school to teach us sexual education. And since it was a school of nuns, as it is known, the nuns didn't allow it. They said you can talk to them about HIV or about being abstained or contraception methods, but don't teach them how to put a condom or things like that. So there was a deprivation of the rights that we had. And it called my attention because when I was an adolescent, I had several partners. That it sounds bad saying that it's traditional, but popularly we see cases of some undesired pregnancies when they are young. So when I went through all of my years in school, I think the last 3 years, I had one partner or one classmate per year that was pregnant. And it was surprising because the people who got pregnant were the ones who knew the most. But they didn't have information because the information that they were getting was just from their boyfriends. So these people manipulate a lot when they have the first boyfriend or the first relationship, because they say, okay, give me a proof of love, or let's not use a condom, or things like that. Did you get that when you were younger? Well, since I was very young, I always tried to educate myself. So I always told them, like in a polite way, like you have to be responsible or this or that. And they didn't want to go like to a health center to ask for a condom, but they still had intimacy. So going back to your question, you would have liked to have more information. Yes, sexual information. So in case of Tiara, you are a trans woman and you've had some changes. You have some hormones, right? Yes, okay, yes. But you take hormones. But have you been sexually harassed when people look at you? You have a great body, as we were saying, and you are very curvy. Do you get sexually harassed? Yes. Sexual harassment will always be there. And we were saying before, even though doesn't matter how we're dressed. Culture in Honduras is different from other countries, so it's very hard for us to feel safe when we're on the street. So in case of Osman, have you been discriminated against? Have you felt this? And how have you endured this? What do you tell a person when you are harassed? Because there are men who also harass others. Maybe a woman just turns the other way and they have like an orthodox mindset. Tell us a little bit about that experience that makes you see life in a different way, because that's what experiences are for.
Yes, of course, indeed. The first experience I had was in high school when a colleague, a classmate, male and female, were both harassing me. One wanted to know if, practically as we call it, a faggot. And I used to say no. But as I got to know, because I am very apprehensive, so I got to know more about the topics, then I thought, this is not the way I can react so violently. I can then turn around and just go on.
Osman, at what age did you notice that you were homosexual?
Well, I believe it was during my puberty, and when I was 12 years old and I began liking a boy. When I thought, okay, yeah, if I liked them before, but once I got to puberty was when I said, no, I need to explore myself on that area.
Did you like a girl someday?
Yes, I had 2 girlfriends.
Really? Tell me about that. How was it?
Well, the experience with them was quite nice, but it was sort of me growing in a very religious environment, and with all due respect.
Of course. You just hold hands and that's it.
Sweating, kissing on the cheek, or little gifts.
But did you feel something? Did you feel sexual desire?
Not so much, because I was very within the church. So I thought I need to get to marriage as a virgin, and I did like being with them. them. But after that time, when I had my 2 girlfriends and I had my first sexual relationship and my first partner as a boy, it became very interesting, and that's when I began thinking, no, this is what I want.
Was it traumatic? Did you like it?
Yes, very traumatic. Why? Because I did it hidden from my family. I needed to explore.
And you were very religious, so you felt guilty.
Of course, it was the fact we couldn't see anyone in the streets who had a different sexual identity or orientation as them, because I began insulting them and stating, if one of my children becomes that, then we'll beat them up or we'll take them to a date house. And I always held that close to me, the thought of being taken to a date house to become a man. Yes, I felt afraid because I did not know what they were going to do to me. It was fear, a taboo.
You only had one encounter with one boy. With girls?
No, never with girls.
Have you seen them? Did they know you were homosexual? Did they say something to you because you didn't do something or whatever?
Well,
were they shocked?
I believe not. After a while, beginning of this year, I encountered one of them, and looking at them was very impactful.
A great impact.
Why? Because I still feel that likeness.
So you still like them?
Yeah, it was a good love with her, and we only saw each other and just smiled.
It was hard.
Because she was with her partner and with her child. Now she had a boy, and it was like, okay, but it's good that I wasn't me. I thought, being in a family, I'm good the way I am.
Well, great. So you have a boyfriend now?
No.
But you're looking for one?
Possibly so.
What are you looking for?
Well, mostly, often we say, and I say this in confidence, most of gay men are looking for any man, and it's not the case. We are quite selective. In my own case, I'm very selective. And why? Because I'm well prepared, and I need a person almost of my same rank. Intellectually. Why? Because I need stability. Every person requires a stability, so you always look for stability.
Are you in love?
Lostly in love.
We know, lostly in love. We know that in this country, gay marriage is not accepted. Would you go to a different country to marry a man or a gay person?
Interesting. Before stepping into the set, I was telling someone, I will. When I saw a guy, I will get married because of this person. I do believe in marriage. But I believe everything comes at its own time. First, you need to get to know the person. And I believe taking a step towards marriage is very important, and it's not something to be taken lightly. And I wouldn't take it lightly in this case. I wouldn't like going to marry in another country. Being a Honduran catracho, I would like to marry here, to have my own family here, and being able to get that family for myself. Often we state families and men, women, and children. No.
Okay, I will ask a question. It's addressed to all three of you, and I want you to respond briefly. So first, Sandy, do you believe that pleasure is a taboo or it is a right? It is a right, but the society looks at it as a taboo. I agree with Sandy. It is a right.
It is a right.
How can we change the mindset of human beings? And I'm not only talking about Hondurans. I'm talking about like Middle Eastern countries where the clitoris of women is cut so they won't feel pleasure. What do you think about that? Well, recently the platform had some guides on sexual education, and the process were very interesting because these guides are not as such. They're not formal guides like a rubric, but they were taken out of questions that youth had. So in the process, we made it with the Secretariat of Youth, and Kevin gave me the opportunity. He is the coordinator of the Secretariat to select the questions and segment them. So I divided the questions by sexual diversity, body health, etc. And honestly, I laughed at some questions because I said, what a question. I had a different education from the person who responded. So starting from there, if the platform fights for SRHR, first of all, we are born with a body, with a sex. Since we are born, maybe the first cry is an act of our body, and when we develop, there are psychological theories that Tiara can talk about that mention that children have those feelings of pleasure, like hugging their mothers, kissing their mothers, and they fall in love with their teachers, right? And yes, all of that has to do with our bodies. And if we are born with a body and we are violated to have a health that includes elements like physical, emotional, psychological health, and even the ethical sense, because to exercise values, we also have duties, and within those duties, we have ethical values that we have to foster. I don't like when the anti-rights people say that what we want is to pervert people. No, what we want to do is to educate people so they can understand the limits of those rights, because I cannot go over you just because I want to have pleasure with you, but you don't want it with me. So those kinds of things are included within SRHR. Sandy, you work in this platform. You are a heterosexual. No. You are bisexual. You have had male and female partners. Who have you felt more pleasure with? When we talk about bisexuality, it's very confusing because currently there are other ways to talk about sexual orientation, like pansexuality, which is, for instance, I am a cisgender woman, and I can be with Tiara, or I can be with Osman if he was heterosexual, or with a woman, etc. So as the LGBTI movement makes progress, new things come up. But in the past, it was so taboo that it wasn't studied. I knew that I was bi since I was very young. I was 8 years old, I think, because I would be with my girlfriends, and I like it. Have you been rejected by women? Not the ones that I like. So usually, yes, I understand that of being liked back. So I will not harass someone that I am attracted to, but I understand that they don't have the same sexual orientation, and I will not be disrespectful with that person. So you like to give and receive affection, right? Affection. I'm talking about affection. Just about that. Tiara, have you had any experiences with women or just with men? With men, but I am open to meeting other people. You're not close-minded. No, I have a super open mind. What about you, Osman?
Yes, the same, open to possibilities.
Yes, of course. You had a girlfriend, but you didn't have intimacy with her.
Sure.
Could you have intimacy with a woman?
Yes, I think so. I think I need to be very attracted for both of them to feel that attraction.
Have you thought that you are bisexual?
The thing is, I have thought of it often, but sometimes I fall into the conclusion that no, I'm a gay boy.
So we're going to talk about the platform. I have meddled in your lives enough. But aside about knowing about your life, you also have a job, and you fight for this way of life, for this philosophy of life. So what is your job within this platform?
Well, one of the main jobs is to oversee. As a monitoring and evaluation officer, is to oversee the outcomes that we have. In this case, we are supporting the public policies for every groups in situations of vulnerability with a focus on sex and reproductive rights, where every person who is young may have that education that they have also a true comprehensive education that isn't just superficial, and they begin to say names to genitals or to young people, because in schools we still see this, but that there is a true education where youth can feel in confidence and state, okay, yes, this is a sexual orientation, this is sexual identity and expression, and we need a little bit more of information and being able to explore our bodies, because it's not a sin to explore our bodies or feeling pleasure.
Sandy, you are also part of psychology. No, philosophy. What would you tell a parent that is, or a parent for the first time, let's put it this way, and they start with these kinds of taboos when the child is knowing about sexuality, when the child knew that he didn't like girls or boys or vice versa? The first thing I will tell them, you as a parent, your main duty is to seek for the health of your child, and that includes elements like emotional health. If from the beginning the person feels rejection in their first circle, is something that is very painful. I know cases of people that have come out of the closet, as we say, and they have been banned from their households, or even their own families puts them in the position of being hit, up to even being killed. And there are cases of people who are threatened to be killed because of that. So those kinds of, those are the limits that people get to, just because they don't understand that since there are heterosexual people, there are also other people that are not only attracted physically and emotionally from someone from the opposite sex. Because there is a person from philosophy, Michel Bucon, he was hated in the academy because he was gay. And he died from HIV because Michel Bucon, even though he was incredibly smart, because of that lack of sexual education, he could have avoided an STI, and he didn't, because he didn't know about it. And even he has 3 volumes of books that speak about sexuality. And it is interesting because he includes different perspectives. So for me, sexuality is something we are born with and we die with. Even the elders have to enjoy and feel pleasure from their sexuality. So I think that is something essential. Having sexual reproductive health and being repressed by your family can even lead you to suicide if you're rejected. Interesting. So through all these shows that we have made with the platform, we have also talked about HIV and how unfortunately HIV is linked to trans or lesbian or gay people by the society, and all of the orientations and sexual diversity. So in case of Tiara, how do you take care of yourself not to get an STI? As I said before, it is very important to be able to know about these topics because they are very important. In my case, as I said before, we are not born with all of the knowledge. We know every day, and I have tried to address the organizations to know more about these topics and also to address other youth so they can have more knowledge about this. Okay, so what about you? How do you take care of yourself in that sense?
I believe beyond care, we need to know our bodies, but also know what we expose ourselves to. Often, the reading we have or the analysis we have as young people is quite interesting because we know how we must take care of ourselves and as not to screw it up, as we say, when we couldn't do it. And so it's the issue lies in taking care of ourselves, and that's why there are planning methods and preservatives for males, as we know. And it's something that comes from your education. If we are well educated, I believe we'll take care of ourselves and we have a healthy relationship.
In an educational way, I don't know a lot about this, but can you explain what's the passive or active gay? And I think there's more about it. So please tell me about it.
Well, see, that's interesting because often when a boy, and this is broadly speaking, because I have several events when young boys, when they begin embracing their sexual role as a bottom or a top, people begin stating, oh, he's a woman that's going to be receiving, and the other one will provide pleasure and so on. But no, it's a role that this person, this boy in its case, defines as such and states, okay, I don't like to penetrate others, I like to be penetrated. And why? Because we know that young males have their G-point in their anus. So when there's this type of relationships, it becomes quite a high pleasure, the G-point of the body of the male. And often straight men say they don't have a G-point, and when they carry out a prostate exam, they don't wish to have it because they know what they'll do to them. And they say, I lose my virginity there. And no, that's wrong. It does not imply anything. This is a sexual intercourse that don't make you less of a man or more of a man. And the same goes for a top, is a person who provides, and the versatile is who enjoys both, sides. I've always said that in versatility is where joy lies.
So you're versatile.
Yes.
Yes? Yeah,
yes.
Don't be ashamed. It's part of your behavior. So in case of Tiara, do you think, Tiara, that a heterosexual man that has sexual intercourse with another man is a gay that hasn't come out of the closet, as you said? If a heterosexual person considers themselves heterosexual, they can have sex with a man and continue feeling heterosexual. It depends on the person. So it's not that they have come out of the closet.
No, sexual practices don't make you.
So you could say that it's the animal instinct of the human being.
No, it can be the seek of pleasure and getting to know yourself. I believe if I wasn't a gay person, if I had been with another male, I wouldn't have become gay just for being with that guy. I explored.
So it's not that you noticed you were gay very young.
Yes, I accepted myself. I accepted myself because often I was repressing. Often LGBTI people repress our identities and our expression, even our orientation, because of that issue of family. And so we begin stating, no, I'm full straight. But no, when the time comes, when you embrace yourself and state, okay, I'm sorry, but this is the way I am.
Okay, so we're going to see at this last question that I have to make, and I hope you don't feel bad, but it's a question that everyone makes. A gay person is born or they become one? A lesbian is born or becomes one? A trans woman is born or becomes one. In my case, I consider that it is part of being born, of feeling, of knowing how to identify yourself. I always knew that I was a woman, but my mindset, the way I felt, did not agree with my body, but that's what I felt. Osman?
In this case, I've always stated we are born. But just to tell you, often people state that you are made. Why? Because you are raped when you were a child. So the boy, the girl then wanted that. But no, you are born. This is something you bring from within, but it is repressed when you are with the family. And there comes a time where you are not unleashed, but rather accept as such.
Sandy, real quick. I could also only answer with something that I have tattooed in my arm, knowing yourself in Latin. That's one of the things that I want to know, knowing myself. And that is why I don't have any limits or any barriers in my mind, because that's how you know yourself. And you have to be authentic and say, this is the way I am. And if you don't accept me, that's your problem because of your prejudices. Okay, so talking about the platforms, what are some of the achievements talking in this topic?
I believe one of the achievements is to get to know more about sex and reproductive rights and the right to pleasure. pleasure. The pleasure of knowing yourself, what it is that we have, and if it's our body, then we decide what to do or not to do with it.
Okay, what do you think in your work? What have you achieved? Raising an awareness on youth. Information is important because that information is not only for them, they can also spread it around. And in your case, just as Tiara, educating, because by educating, I have shared with a lot of youth and I have seen the prompt results on how people change mindsets with a better education. What do you think about the future? How are you going to see Honduras in this topic?
There are many barriers. There are many barriers that I believe slowly will remove them through education that we can provide. Because from the Right Here Right Now platform, we are always providing comprehensive education. We always state, things the way they are, bare. So this is what it is. It is this way, and it's not little bread or worms.
It's better
you don't need to name
speak
names.
with the truth, right?
Of course.
So I will tell you that one of your peers is connected here, is Mama Avila. She is a feminist lawyer from the Black community, and I could say that she suffers because she's a woman, because she's feminist, because she's from a different race. She suffers from discrimination, and she is an advocate for human rights. She is an educator of human rights for the indigenous and Black communities. She's an investigator for public management. She is an ex-official from the governance and studies from Transparency International from Honduras. And she is a consultant for NGOs in affairs of human rights, amongst them Gofraning. So we are going to speak with Ama Avila so she can tell us about her experience. What have been these points of discrimination and how can we overcome them? How to say, I don't care about this and I have something to say and that I can continue fighting for the indigenous people. Let's see. I want to thank Right Here, Right Now for the space and for opening to speak up. And I fight for my voice to be the voice of many other women. Basically, being able to find myself in a space where I can explore my sexuality was an adventure, a fight, a challenge. It was a mix of different aspects from that opening that I couldn't find in my family because there were a lot of stereotypes in terms of conserving some issues that nowadays we know as taboos. But aside from that, it was a process where by myself I had to find those paths with the difficulty that I was a Black woman. So, and I am part of the Garifuna and indigenous people. So I was studying, I was socializing, I was building myself in a society where in schools I was the only Black girl. And there are some specs that we have as indigenous or Black women, like our hair or those proportions in our bodies. So for them, it was normal to say that as a Black woman, I am more voluptuous or I have a bigger butt or things that would make me feel uncomfortable at certain spaces. So that was an exploration, exploring myself in that identity. And that continues to be a challenge. Like millions of girls have been able to get a full exercise of their rights because that is very complex now. So for other girls, for other women to do it, what I recommend first is that those of us who have found it, to share with them, to go to the platforms, to exercise our rights and teaching them that those rights are not optional. these rights are something that is intrinsic in our lives. So we have to do it from there, from the journey that we have done a lot in all of the public spaces, like for me to be here. And just facing this fight so the educational system can include this in the system. When we say what they have to do, they should be the ones to take their own path. But you have to guide them. And who is guiding them? In the communities, they are guided by their grandmothers and mothers. And these women are the ones who didn't have access to formal education with quality, and they didn't have access to sexual or to comprehensive sexual education. So from that point of view, we have to get involved in that fight so they can get engaged, and for them to participate, and also for them to be beneficiaries, direct beneficiaries of an educational system that can lead them to building the full enjoyment of their sexual and reproductive health and rights. Thank you very much, Naama. I really liked your answers, and I know that that's a very important contribution within this topic that we are talking about in this platform. Any conclusions? Anything else that we have to say, or that you want to say to the entire world?
Interesting. Well, I believe we have the right to pleasure, right? And also to get to know each other as we are. And don't be hidden. The world will not murder you because of you accepting who you are. They may discriminate you, but organizations are here, your siblings are here, your sisters are here who can provide you with the accompaniment. We are here with open arms to carry out the hard work together.
Tiara, for us to know how to deconstruct ourselves and to enjoy our sexuality. Sandy, for you to know yourself. No one can tell you you cannot do something. And every time that you believe that you are making a step to know yourself, don't go back just to make other people feel good. So I thank you very much, because this has been a very interesting space. You have told me parts of your life, and that is very nice, because you accepted yourself, because you know your bodies. And I think that all the people and all of the population worldwide should know it. So I congratulate you, because that is also part of expressing yourself and of knowing what you like, what you don't like, and what we can do as a society. And for those of you who are at home, thank you very much for following the Right Here, Right Now Honduras platform. Thank you very much.